Okay, now thousands of people remain homeless while government is sitting on vast tracts of land that could be used to alleviate the country's housing backlog. In Cape Town, national government owns 4 military bases, which some argue could be filled up for housing. But the Department of Defense is adamant that these spaces are to be used for operations. Researcher at Ndifuna Ukwazi, Nick Budlender, joins me now live from Cape Town to delve into this a little deeper. Nick, good afternoon. Welcome today. I've written your thoughts together with Adi Kumar in the Daily Maverick about this. It is indeed a shame to get to understand that there is land that is available to government, but it is not being used urgently enough to address our housing backlog.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. And yes, I mean, I think it's a massive shame that actually some of the solutions to this very severe housing crisis that we face are actually at our disposal currently, and yet they haven't been put to good use. I mean, anyone that follows politics in this country will know that there's been a lot of debate around expropriation without compensation and around issues of land and housing. But actually, one of the simplest and easiest and most readily available solutions is for the government to use the vast amount of land that it currently already owns to develop affordable housing. I mean, in Cape Town, we have a massive mismatch between what housing costs and what most people earn. And that's resulting in a housing backlog that's growing every year. More and more people are living in informal settlements. And the scale of government delivery has actually declined if you look at sort of the medium term. So I think that, you know, the urgency and intensity and size of our housing crisis is getting a lot worse, yet we aren't seeing the requisite kind of action to react and respond to this from government.
Yet we hear the right noises from the president and other spaces in government around addressing this issue, but there is little action. What did you find could be the main reasons? I mean, in my intro, I've mentioned the Defence Force, for example, in Cape Town, where there's vacant land, but they claim that it's to be used by them.
So, I mean, I think the military bases are one specific example, right? And research produced by Ndifuna Ukwazi and a range of other organizations in a submission to the presidency showed that at least 67,000 homes could be built on those 4 military bases. So obviously they are very substantial and they have a real potential to have a, you know, sort of cut away at some of the housing backlog in the city. Obviously, you know, the military will need to be accommodated too, and there'll need to be discussions and kind of agreements around how much of that land remains for military purposes and how much can be used for something else like affordable housing. But what is patently clear right now is that huge amounts of that land are vacant and underutilized. And I think anybody that's ever driven past the military bases in question will know that that's the case.
I mean, this is one government, Nick. I wonder what the Department of Human Settlements, because they are the ones who should be addressing this. I mean, surely there should be better coordination.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that really it's a big failure of intergovernmental coordination. And the other point that I wanted to make is that the military bases are only one example of these sort of vast pieces of public land that remain undeveloped. There are a range of other pieces of public land across the country. You know, according to the previous Minister of Public Works, more than 13,000 hectares have been earmarked for release across South Africa. And yet we aren't actually seeing any progress on it. And through our investigations and through speaking to people and trying to figure out exactly what's going on, it appears that fundamentally what the problem is an inability of certain government institutions, namely the Department of Human Settlements and the HDA, to act with urgency. I mean, the Housing Development Agency has a significant mandate to acquire and prepare land for development, as well as actually carry out the development of housing. But people in other spheres of government and even other people within the national sphere are highly critical of their sense of urgency and their ability to actually carry things off.
Yeah.
And as a result, in the meantime, as I said, our housing crisis gets worse and worse. So really, we should be seeing, especially because the land I'm speaking about right now all belongs to one sphere of government, it really shouldn't be that complicated for these different departments to work together and come to a solution that is more equitable, just, and logical.
Yeah. I know it's not the main theme. You're using it as an example. It's not the main theme or the main nub of your article and your research, the work that you've done with Adi Kumar in this regard. But whereabouts is this land in Cape Town? Just give us a sense. Give our viewers whereabouts is this defense-owned land?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, firstly, the big military bases are Youngsfield Military Base, Easterplaat Military Base, and Wingsfield Military Base. All of those are in very central areas of Cape Town, you know, very close to jobs and schools and hospitals and all the other sort of government services that people need both to live decent lives, but also to achieve upward economic mobility. So it makes absolutely no sense. And I think you would really struggle to find an example anywhere else in the world where such well-located, such accessible land is used for a purpose like this, especially because most of the sites sit completely empty. Then there's a range of other land owned by the national government and by the city of Cape Town and the province, various pockets, a lot of which, again, is very well located. Okay. So there's an excuse that's put forward for the lack of development is that there isn't enough land available. But, you know, that patently isn't true. We can show very, very, very clearly through concrete examples a lot of public land that could be used.
As we conclude, is that excuse from the Department of Human Settlements? Because people do occupy land, and then you have squatters, informal settlement everywhere.
So I think that's a very important question. And I think that the reason why we have such high levels of occupation in South Africa is because we have a housing system that is largely failing. Neither the formal private housing market nor government provision is getting anywhere near matching the scale of the demand. And everybody needs a place to live. So occupations are difficult. They make it more difficult to deliver housing projects. You know, it's hard for governments to manage the land, but they're a consequence of government inaction and they're a consequence of a lack of urgency. So I think it's important to be able to kind of join those two issues together and to understand how closely related they are to each other.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick, for your time and explanations around this issue of homelessness and the increasing backlog of housing in our country. That's Nick Budlender.